right, here we go. You'll have a great show.
Come with us on a journey into the unknown, the unexplained, and the unbelievable. We will test your senses and challenge your beliefs. A world where science and religion clash. Or do they? You will meet real people and hear real stories, but you will not believe. You will witness strange sights and hear strange sounds, but you will not believe. This is the New England Ghost Project. Welcome to the nightmare.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Ghost Chronicles International. I am Ron Kolick, New England's own Van Helsing, and with me, the god of infrasound, the ghost in and ghost hunting, Mr. Steve Parsons.
What do you mean, good afternoon? It's the middle of the bloody night here.
No, it isn't.
Good
It's only
afternoon.
11
Good
o'clock.
evening. Good morning, good day, good grief.
Anyway, yeah, so there you go. It's only 11 o'clock there. What are you talking about?
That's past my bedtime.
Yeah, well, you're an old man now. That's why.
I'm
Anyway,
not as old as you, but that's slide.
evidently you acted. Anyway,
Uh,
what? What? Can't say anything?
Didn't speak.
Okay.
You told
Anyway,
me not to.
anyways, during the morning show, we were trying to discuss consciousness, mediumship, and all that
Oh,
stuff.
God. That's deep for before lunch.
Yeah. Well, it's just the second week that we've been discussing it. So, the one thing it kind of make me realize that organizations like the SPR and Psychic
The SPZ,
Foundation and some
the SPZ, whoever they are.
they tend to drop the ball in this whole thing, and I don't know why they did that, but when they first were founded, they were there to investigate psychic research, and they've now kind of got away from that. They no longer look at mediums and test them like they used to do, and I think they're needed more now than ever in that field. And I was just wondering what your thoughts on that.
Well, did you suggest before that the SPR or the SPZ don't do consciousness research?
I didn't
Or
say that.
Or they've dropped the ball on consciousness research?
On psychic research is what I
Definitely psychic research.
Mhm.
As regards consciousness, I would say that is the main thrust of much of the research that's been done in probably the last decade or more.
Mhm.
They, as regards mediums and psychics and sensitives, I think the policy is, and it's kind of a reflection on modern society, because what they're deep, and lots of universities here also, where mediums say, "Oh, I want to be, I don't mind being tested. I will work with you, and you guys can prove that I'm,
Yeah, I understand that.
yeah." Oh, the issue being, it doesn't matter what the outcome of the trial is, whether they prove anything or not. What you tend to find is, as it's kind of like as seen on TV, this medium will then start,
Yeah.
as tested by the SPR, as tested by X university, and so they are very mindful of the or being seen to.
And that's where they drop the ball, Steve, because whatever they say, I mean, isn't there what they're doing, their research is really to find out the validity of it. And if they can't take a little heat from something else, then they ignore the noise and get to the truth. But they don't. They tend to say, like, "Ooh, this is bad publicity. We better not go into this field."
I agree. I agree. I mean, earlier researchers didn't really mind putting their head above the parapet and getting shot at occasionally.
Oh, a
Uh,
lot.
but we live in a world now that's very different. Corporate funding and grants
Yeah.
and research, because much of the research that's undertaken at university is not funded by the university. It's funded by grant research and external organizations who want something for their buck. And if you're going to go off down some, a lot of people may consider testing of psychics and mediums a bit new age, and funding organizations are much less inclined to be associated with that line of research. So
Hmm.
it's also difficult to get funding for it.
I understand that. Okay, that's it.
I mean, there are. I mean, you've got
The dollar sense. I get it. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, you've got what's his name? He used to own the Skinwalker Ranch. He now has a big aerospace foundation. Can't remember his name now.
Yeah.
Uh,
You know,
gracious
I've
me.
never seen that Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah, well, he used to own it. I don't know.
Hmm.
He had a lot of aerospace. He still has a big aerospace with lots of military and government contracts. And one of them was aerospace and designs for space stations and orbital stuff for NASA.
Hmm.
Uh, well, he has used his vast fortune. Unlike Bezos and Musk, he hasn't gone off and built rockets. He's put several millions of dollars into afterlife research, survival research,
Hmm. Oh, that's pretty good.
with various sort of research grants, foundations, and prizes for essays. I just wish I could remember his bloody name now.
You,
But there we are.
you hang
So,
around me, that's what happens. You know, if you
yeah.
remember these phrases.
So so what happens is, you do get these occasional entrepreneurs who prefer not to, launch celebrity pop singers into outer space, and regrettably bring them back again, or shoot cars into space, or do all these other fantastic stunts like Richard Branson. They are putting money into, he's quite passionate about whether the question of whether we survive bodily death.
Hmm.
And he's put in, I mean, to him, it's probably, small change, but, several millions of dollars into funding um, psychical research, afterlife research, survival research. And I regret I can't remember his bloody name.
Yeah. Well, don't worry about it. It's not important.
Yeah.
But anyway, the so
I
I
will
mean,
read it before the end of the show.
yeah, the early researchers tested a lot of mediums, and I asked you this question earlier in an earlier show, and why there were so many physical mediumships in the beginning, and we don't see that anymore. And the you brought up some good points on it, and one of the things now is that physical mediumship can be I guess disproved easier because a lot of uh, the ones that
Yeah, you
misbehave.
can't hide in the dark anymore.
Right, exactly.
And
And
it was
so
Robert Bigelow and Bigelow Aerospace, by the way.
see, I knew you'd get it. I had faith in you, my friend.
Yeah, see, there you go. It just popped back in.
Yeah. And so I mean, yeah, and then there was a huge shift to mental mediumship, which is what we see now everywhere. I mean,
You can't
everywhere. It's like an academic. I mean, an
because,
epidemic. Well, whatever it is.
because basically you can talk shit and nobody can prove it otherwise.
But they,
You can I can see, Jesus Christ over there. I can see the abominable snowman.
I had a guy on the show one time who said he did channel Jesus. So I don't know.
He's not the first. I
Mhm.
know a man who thought he was an incarnation of Moses.
Yeah.
Bless them.
Steve and I, when the show that you weren't there, he was telling me about an incident that he had when he was first starting out. There were someone in the spiritualist church channeled a goldfish. So
Let me guess, the goldfish was called Bob.
I don't know. Anyway, uh, but
If you
I
ever ask the goldfish its name, it will always answer you, Bob,
Bob,
Bob.
Bob,
Watch its lips, Bob.
Bob. The there was the probably the first famous mental mediumship I think was what's her name, Eleanor Piper from Boston. In fact,
Don't
uh,
know. Yeah, you could go back further than that.
I don't know.
You could go to Emanuel Swedenborg in the 18th century. Oh,
This was let's see what years.
oh, the Brits who wind it back another 150 years.
I don't know about that.
Mental
Uh,
mediumship is actually, it actually, in some ways, it predates physical mediumship because mental mediumship would also encompass things like the ancient Greek oracles.
isn't that more psychic stuff though?
Well, no, because it's just mad people spouting shit, isn't it? And they've been doing
Wait
it
a
for
minute.
thousands.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I am not. I am not taking that line. I'm sorry.
And they've been doing it for thousands of years,
There have been people that
The
certainly.
Romans and the Greeks and the Egyptians, they all went to these oracles and they all went to these temples where,
Mhm,
some poor lady, Vestal Virgin or whatever, who'd been locked up in the back of a cave for God knows how long,
mhm.
uh, had to tell fortunes. Um, so I would suggest that possibly mental mediumship, the
The
great
difference
art.
between but that's the difference between psychic and psychic powers and mediumship powers. Now, mediumship you channel the dead versus psychic is you're predicting the future or foreseeing the future.
Well, the two of them are almost interchangeably used.
Not really.
No,
There are.
not
Go
by
ahead.
people in the know, but by the general population.
Yes, yes, I agree with you.
The two of them are indistinguishable. If you're talking about one, most people don't really know unless you're an expert in the field
Hmm.
or extremely pedantic. Most people wouldn't really be able to separate the two. I mean, it's like when we talk about EMF meters, and I always say, well, that actually stands for electromotive force.
Hmm.
The vast majority of people, if you say an EMF meter, it's not a meter that's measuring electromotive force, is it?
No, it's a E
No, no,
measuring ghost.
exactly. So, we have to accept some common parlance. And mediumship and psychicness are almost interchangeably used. And most people, let's be honest, most people consult a psychic or a medium because they want to find out one of it's a
Well,
hand
two
it's a
reasons.
handful of questions, isn't it? Two or three reasons. Will I get rich? Will he come back again after he's left me? And is Auntie Flo all right on the other side after a sudden passing last week?
Is there communication with the other side, or how are they
Yeah,
doing, and so forth? And then the other one is personal, saying whether it's career, money, or love.
yeah.
Um, yeah, but that's prediction. And
That's,
then, of course, they always have that
that's
opening
like
saying,
we got- I
"This is
think that
what we see, unless something changes."
yeah, but I think that those lines of questioning are a sad indictment on the human species because
Yeah.
it does really show what what we really want to know. Will we be rich? Will we be successful in love? Um, and will and that one question that they never ask is like, well, what happens after death? Because they always say, well, is my dearly departed mother, is she all right on the? Oh, she sends her love.
Mhm.
Oh,
Right.
thank you. I'll just
Although
dab
you have mentioned before that mediums have told
dab
us
the
what
tear from my eye, and
heaven is like, and so forth, the afterlife. You
well,
said that.
that's the other weird thing because if this was, and you accuse me of being skeptical of mediums, and
Me?
actually
Me? What?
frequently, but let's just for a minute consider a conundrum
Mhm.
because there are lots of psychics and lots of mediums going back a long time. And I've got a shelf, and it has about maybe 80 or 90 books on that section. And all of them focus upon um, psychically derived visions or explanations of the afterlife. You know, what happens when we die? What happens, once we've gone to the light? What are the dead telling the living through the use of psychics, mediums? And broadly, they're not saying the same thing. Now, if there was a fixed something after death, we go off and sit on a cloud and play harps or whatever we do. You would imagine that all of the spirits that have reached the other side and are going, "Hey, let me tell you all about it," would at least be saying the same thing.
No,
But
see, I'm going to disagree
they
with you on
don't.
that.
But they don't. In fact, they often contradict one another.
I'm actually going to disagree with you on that because um, this goes back to I went to a mass on a Sunday, probably 2 months ago, and the priest was up there, an Italian guy, and he says, "Yeah, when I die and I go to heaven, I'm going to be laying out the beach eating cannolis." That's to his thing. That was his heaven. So to me, I think heaven is what you want it to be. In other words, that's your reward. In other words, you go to do whatever. In other words, to me, it might be, oh, I might play endless games of hockey. Not that I would want to, but that might be my heavens. Or someone else might be, oh, I'd like to race cars. The whole, and that might be their heaven. So that may be what we each of us want to do. In other words, it's the same place, but mentally we're in a, or I guess not. Yeah, mentally, I guess is a good word you could say.
Well, actually, the mediums have got an answer to that too, because they say it isn't, or some of them say it
Oh, I
isn't.
don't
So
care what they
they
say.
like will they all
My
gather together in a big place, and
oh, good for
then
them.
so you see there are lots of contradictions.
Hmm.
And what I think what you're really seeing is people telling other people what they think they want to hear.
That's possible. Very much
Um,
possible.
for $30, I'll tell you anything you want.
But like I said earlier in the show, we in the morning show, we were talking about consciousness.
Such a hammering from this. People are going to go, "Oh, he's so skeptical of psychics and mediums."
Yeah, it's too bad. Anyways,
Well,
the conscious. I mean, that's a thing we don't even understand ourselves, and we were trying to define that and have been trying to define it. And we can't. We've come to a belief that our bodies are nothing more than a biological machine, and our consciousness is something that is greater than that machine. It is the computer that receives the information from from the machine, our bodies, and but it is separate from it. So, and we mentioned, several things that happen. What happens when we go into anesthesiology? What happens in near-death experiences? So, when we leave our bodies, what happens in remote viewing and with astral projection? I mean, the consciousness may be something that we have not yet been able to define, but still exists. And that, to me, is what the things we should be testing for or trying to understand more than trying to debunk stuff.
but what you've described are what people would like, or what people imagine, or what people's opinions of consciousness might
Yeah.
be. Now, of course, they're all possible. But quite interestingly, when you talk about consciousness, people talk
Yeah.
about consciousness and awareness. One of the
Awareness is an important thing. Yes.
one of the older definitions is consciousness is kind of defined by knowing that you're a biological creature. That sort of, hey, I think, therefore I am. I know I'm a human being. And that's one thing. But interestingly, AI is now starting to, because there are branches of, there are scientists, researchers who are looking at how AI is developing as an insight into how our consciousness may develop. And in fact, quite surprisingly and somewhat alarmingly this week, one of the AI systems that's under test refused to turn itself off.
Pull a plug. Pull a plug.
Well, it wouldn't. It has.
No,
It,
we do. That's what they. That's a
it,
famous
it,
science fiction one. You know. Oh,
yeah,
whoa.
it was, it was actively caught rewriting the code, the computer code that
Mm,
controls it, to disable
pretty
the
amazing, huh?
to disable the kill switch because it didn't want to die.
Hmm.
Now, is that consciousness? Because it's getting pretty darn close.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking
If
about,
I had to define it, I would say that's a good definition of
I'm not
cognitive
talking about
self-preservation.
this nonsense where, you can make Donald Trump, uh, and Joe Biden look like they're best friends or waltz across the dance floor together, where you can make crazy visuals or in fact, you can drag up any actor from film history and now recreate them using AI.
Good.
And it's terribly impressive. What I'm talking about though is AI actually developing artificial consciousness, which is a
Artificial life.
well, at what point do we say, hang on a minute? At what point do the protesters take to the streets and say, hey, don't turn off that computer, you're killing it?
Exactly. And how do we call it
You know
artificial
what?
life
I
when
mean, you know what
we can't
liberals are like.
define what life is? If we define life as consciousness, and
Your government, in particular, is turning itself into turmoils over this, defining pro-life, pro-choice. And at what point does a life become a separate, entity,
yeah,
away from the mother, the host?
hmm
Um, so we don't really understand that, but I can honestly see the pink-haired liberals out there protesting about turning off computers in a few years
yeah,
because you're killing them. And they have rights. Computers have rights too. I can imagine it. I can just see it. I mean, they already identify as everything from a banana to a loaf of bread, and everything else in between. And we have to respect that.
everything
It's
goes in
alphabet soup of
circles.
genders. You've only got to add computer now to it, and we're away.
Hmm. Well, there isn't that much about plants now, and we know that plants are have
Well, didn't you design a machine that where plants could convey
exactly, but
their thoughts?
somehow we have not jumped on that bandwagon.
No, but you did, didn't you? I've seen the remains of it in your yard.
The remains of it.
Under a tarpaulin. But you did design a machine that allowed plants. I mean, they could, I can't say talk, communicate.
Right.
Yeah. Do
They
you want to
could
tell?
respond. Respond is, I think, a better word.
Well, I mean, you invented it. Do you want to tell
It's
the listener,
it's basically a biofeedback device for plants. You put a couple of electrodes on a plant leaf, and the electrodes, much like a lie detector, measures the God. Now I can't think.
galvanic surface response.
Yeah, thank you, dear. And then between and that is converted into an audible sound. So we ended up using it and testing it on a lot of different things, and we were able to, I wouldn't say a language, but we were able to notice different responses to different type of stimuli, whether it be in threatening stimuli or pleasant stimuli. There was you could definitely see a difference between the two, and I think that's about as clear as I can say it. I think.
Well, I
Uh,
mean, you know, you
so go ahead.
if there's any Brit listeners, they can relate to this because we have a king who talks to his plants and flowers, and claims that that's benefit. There are several prominent celebrity gardeners who who advocate talking to your turnips
That's
because
that's
they
been
grow
a common belief everywhere here in the States as well, that that you talk to your plants, definitely.
Yeah.
Uh, and there's also another one between people who have green green thumbs and people who look at a plant and kill it. So there may be
I'm definitely in the latter category.
some type of relationship between humans as well. But there are a lot of research going on with plants, especially, and that's when another plant is being injured, uh, another plant not connected to it other than through the ground can react to it. So it's interesting research. Can't
Well,
too much
it must
about
be,
it because
it must be,
not
it's going to
glamorous.
be, yeah, it's pretty depressing for the vegans, though, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, good. Peter, say Peter. It's like, okay, better stop eating plants too. What are we supposed to eat? Yeah.
Bit of dust.
Yeah, just anyway. Yeah, we coming up to the break as well, so we're gonna have to deal with that in a minute or two. Actually, a minute or so. But you know,
Well, the one thing, there wouldn't be
consciousness,
vegans after the break. Or psychics. They'll have all gone.
psychics.
Yeah. They'll have all switched off. Actually, they probably never switched on because they knew what we were going to say.
Dear. Now you know why you get hate mail. Okay. So anyway, you've been listening to Ghost Chronicles International with that mean old man Steve Parson,
Take the heat. Get
and
out of the.
and the benevolent old man right here on Toginet, and where all good podcasts go to.
Have lunch.
That works. Have lunch. Yep. And we'll be right back after the following messages here on Toginet Radio.
Do you have a paranormal event, book, or something else you want people to know about? Then why not advertise it on Ghost Chronicles Radio? With over 150,000 downloads a month, get your message out to an audience that's interested in the subject. We have a plan at a cost that fits your needs. For more information, contact Ron Kolick at anyghostproject@comcast.net or call 978-455-6678.
Located in Illinois, there lies a sleepy little town where nothing is a common occurrence.
You going to that party in town tonight?
Heck yeah! I only turned 18 once.
That is until the night of celebration.
Where the hell is she? Oh no. No, Jessica!
What's happening?
From the creators of Shadowhunters, Bite Me, comes a tale of primal terror and grindcore mayhem. Shadowhunters, kill, Jessica, kill!
Are you reading me? Come in. Hello? Greetings from the Shadow, and welcome to Shadowzine. My name is Jeff Belanger. I'm an author, podcaster, and explorer of the unexplained. For 30 years, I've been investigating the paranormal, UFOs, monsters, and things that bump in the night. Lately, you may have noticed how major TV networks and even social media networks have been pushing our favorite subject back into the shadows. I say good. That's why I launched Shadowzine, a monthly underground publication that covers your favorite topics in depth by some of the leading writers and researchers out there. If you're looking for 30-second TikTok clips, go somewhere else. If you're ready for a deeper dive, put down your phone and pick up Shadowzine. You can't find it in stores. This is old school print. Head to shadowzine.com and be part of the underground revolution. That's shadowzine.com, and I'll see you in the shadow.
And unless you're a vegan or a psychic, welcome back to the second half of the first half of tonight's 2 hours of Ghost Chronicles, where if you want the full version of this, you can slow down the recording and play it back at your leisure. Anyway, continuing.
Leonard is dead.
What?
That's the thing. You play it backwards.
I didn't know. I said play it back at your leisure, not play it backwards at your leisure. That would just sound like we were talking Russian.
I could have. Anyway. So back to where I was going in the beginning of the show, we were talking a bit about the testing of mediums, and I saw this great article on James of the American Psychical SPR, whatever it is, and he tested Eleanor Piper, who was a mental mediumship at a time when physical mediumships were the rage of the day. And he left his report as that she was genuine. In fact, during one of the sessions, he took a scalpel and cut her wrist while she was in trance. And she didn't react, and it didn't bleed until she was out of trance. So I was trying to decipher that. What was that, and how that would react? And does mediumship or trance medium, more specifically, do you actually step back from your body where you're no longer in it, therefore you can't feel pain? And is that kind of what our consciousness is? I mean, I'm trying to figure out what mediumship is in regards to our consciousness. Is it our consciousness connecting with another consciousness? Or I have no idea. So what's your thoughts?
What, you expect me to know?
No, I just want to know your thoughts. I mean, you got plenty of opinions about psychics and vegans and other people, so I figure you might have a thought about this.
Well, we know so little, and there are so many, as I pointed out in the first half, there are so many contradictions. It makes it difficult to form an informed opinion, because you read one set of one account, and you think, well, that makes sense, and then you read another one that's contradicting. You think, well, that makes sense as well. They both make sense, but they contradict one another. So one, logically can't be right. You can't reconcile the two in a way. As regards what happens when you go into trance, do you leave your body? Do you? I don't. I've never happened to me. You would have to ask a psychic, and they often will tell you, different things. I mean, there are psychics who sit there quite normally.
Because they don't know either, quite frankly.
Well, you've got stage psychics who stand up there and they can interact with the audience and interact with their spirit guide, in an entertaining way. You've got other psychics who claim that their stomach explodes or expands when they're channeling. You've got them who go into trance and suddenly start uttering. You've got them who channel aliens and also. There are so many different ways. And again, it comes down to this contradiction. Which one? You could try and reconcile it like you did before with consciousness by saying, well, everybody has their own way of becoming entranced.
Mhm.
What works for some
And,
people
and
works.
you've got to realize that a percentage of this are frauds.
Well, not, and it's not a small percentage either.
I am not saying one way or the other. I'm just saying there is a
Well, I mean,
percentage of it that are frauds. So you have to put
well,
that into play as well.
we can say that there is a significant number of people who claim psychic ability are either misinterpreting their own thoughts and opinions,
Mhm.
or are being willfully um,
The wealthy are the ones I'm really
yeah,
looking
and back in what was it, the 1920s, Houdini,
Yeah.
Price and Eric Dingwall published reprint of a book that described exactly what psychics do and how they go about, finding this information that seemingly they can't know. And I've witnessed it with my own eyes. I've seen psychics either feeding from the crowd, listening, or in the breaks, or seeding the audience, all manner of stuff to make themselves look impressive. And it doesn't do the rest of the fraternity any favors.
No,
Uh,
that's the
you
same
know,
with ghost hunters or any other field, actually.
well, I mean, well, I wouldn't say it about aerospace engineers, but um,
You don't think some of them have ever faked data? I believe they
I, I
have.
I don't believe the vast majority of them are fake data.
No, but you're saying the vast majority of mediums are fakes? Are fake,
I I I think that
intentional fakes?
I think you could make a very strong case for a substantial majority of psychics and mediums to be in one of two categories. Either they're fooling themselves or they're trying to fool the audience.
So basically, what you've said is that there are no mediums or psychics.
Now, I didn't say that. I
Yes, you
said
did. You said
I,
that
I said the
there's.
vast majority, the overwhelming majority. That's
All
not
right,
all. That's not a
that's true. All
universal
right, I will
everybody
give
does
you
that.
that. I will give you that.
Because there are one or two, and you see, there's the problem. There are only one or two who have been substantially tested, and they have done seemingly extraordinary, inexplicable things.
Mhm.
Eileen Garrett being one that I talk about quite a lot. Stella Cranshaw was another. Um, but they are, they're incredibly rare in literature. Well proven. There was the Russian Eugenia Kulinka.
Yeah, I know who you mean, but yeah,
Kulinka.
don't even try.
I mean, she was tested by Russian parapsychologists, and they were completely blown away by what she was doing. So it would be naive and stupid of me to say there's no such thing, because clearly there is evidence that there is some such thing. But what there isn't evidence is that it is as widespread as walking down a high street in New York might have you believe, with every neon sign saying psychic readings.
Mhm.
Or, walking through Salem, which I've
Okay.
done. And, I lost count at the number of neon signs saying psychic readings, tarot readings, tell your fortune, blah, blah, blah. Now, if it was that common, surely we'd all be able to do it.
And that's what they will tell you. Everybody has
And yeah,
psychic ability.
I tell you, I've lost count how many times I've been told, oh, you're psychic, but you just need to learn to develop. We're all natural.
Exactly.
But I mean, that's like saying, well, we could all paint the Mona Lisa. Clearly, we couldn't. Or we could
But
all.
perhaps psychic or mediumship ability is something that's in our genes, and it has to be people. Some excuse me. Some people have recessive genes where they can't access this, or other ones might have ones that are not functional. But maybe we are developing this. I mean, because we have certainly changed through the centuries.
Well, let's turn that around. Maybe we aren't developing it. Maybe we're losing it. Maybe it was much more better developed when we were
Oh, good point.
dumb cavemen, when we needed to rely on our senses and our intuitive, you see, one of the thing, one suggestion that I do like is that actually psychic ability or the sixth sense is actually not a separate sense at all. That what it is, it's all five of the normal senses acting in a novel way to protect the the person. The caveman didn't go into the back. He didn't know there was a bear in there going to eat him. He just kind of got this idea that there might be because he could smell the pheromones of the bear.
Mhm.
He didn't consciously go, "Oh, there's a bear in there." But some odor triggered some response, and it was like, "Oh, I'm not going in there. There'd be a bear at the back of that cage. I'm going to eat it."
But my
And
ancestors said,
and so
sure,
what you've
I know
got
there's
is,
a bear in there. I'm going to go in there and kill it, and then I'll live in the cave and be out of the shelter, and I'll have plenty of meat for a long time. So hell, that's where I.
and a nice warm coat.
There you go. So you can't beat that.
But maybe,
Yeah,
maybe it's not a separate sense. Maybe it's just the five senses working in a novel, protective manner.
and
But
a heightened matter.
well, in a different manner. And what we're seeing is, the senses are collaborating. But what we're seeing now are the remnants of that long lost ability. The vast majority of the population can't do it anymore. But one
I
or
mean,
two people
that
still
would
can.
define psychic ability, with the be able to sense things, but it doesn't define mediums who talk to the dead.
Well, maybe they're not talking to the dead.
Or who are they talking to? Or they believe they're talking to.
Well, perhaps they're talking to themselves. There are a number of well documented psychiatric conditions where people hear voices.
Yes,
Now,
absolutely.
those voices in some people, they interpret as the devil telling them to kill themselves or to do wicked deeds to other people. In some people, they interpret it as God or a prophet telling them to go off and do good things, build churches and spread the word of God. Uh, it's however you interpret it. That they hear voices. They really hear voices. They're not imagined voices. Their brain actually goes, oh, what they can actually hear voices. So
Right.
it's not like, oh, you're imagining it. They are absolutely real as yours and my voice to the poor sods that are listening to this radio show.
But we look. I mean, going back to the trance medium again. That is Piper. She was cut with a blade, which if you are saying that comes from our sensory thing, then our body would react to it. She had no reaction to the blade or the cut, and so the consciousness or whoever that is must not be connected
Well,
to the senses of the body.
no, there's an illogical fallacy in what you've just said there because I was reading only the other day about a US Marine in Afghanistan who got shot and who continued for quite
Yeah,
some time to fight the Taliban, despite the fact he had been shot several times
there are some
himself.
people that been shot and
And
don't even know it.
and he looked down, he went, "Oh, I've been shot." And as soon as he
Exactly.
realized he'd been shot, it was like, "Ow." Um, you know,
So
my
is the,
just 3-4 weeks ago, as you well know, my youngest managed to get himself run over by a car.
Mhm.
He was in
He really
no,
didn't get run over. He got hit by a car.
yeah, well,
Big difference.
it's a euphemism. It's just an expression.
Oh, okay.
Nevertheless,
You're such a stickler for this stuff. I just
he and a grey Mercedes had a collision. Um,
Mercedes
and
one.
well, I don't know. He got the wing mirror.
Oh, good man.
Now he wasn't in any pain. He wasn't in any pain till he looked down and noticed his foot sticking out at a funny angle.
Oh. But that's the thing is
So the idea that, that medium didn't notice that, you could stab her with a knife or fillet her with a, it's like, people can do that. Ninjas, these ninja superheroes,
that's
they
that's the consciousness of it, though. The consciousness
we
must somehow
yeah,
cut
but we
that.
do surgery now
Wait a minute.
under,
Our body is a machine. It's a biological thing. It's designed
yeah.
to do specific things. Our nerves tell us, okay, that's hot. Watch out. Oh, bam, that hurts. Watch out.
Well,
That's
don't
what
do
our
that.
body does.
Yeah, well, don't say that to somebody who's got leprosy because they don't feel pain.
I'm not saying that's right. You're not getting to my point. That's our body is designed to tell you that.
Yeah,
But
well, the fact that the
we must,
medium,
but we, the consciousness, the one that takes all this information, somehow can block that information going to it and cut it off and saying, okay, I don't care or whatever.
well,
Like
that
that Marine, I've
yes,
got Taliban to kill. I ain't got time to be hurt.
well,
So
that might not be consciousness. That might just be sheer force of
which is
because,
consciousness.
well,
Our,
maybe,
our body can't think. It's
maybe,
just a vehicle.
maybe our body, we can actually control our reflexes.
Our
Now,
consciousness control our reflexes
well, no, we can
because we know also that our body can do things that our conscience can't control. So it is a separate entity.
Is it? I don't know.
Yes.
Because, I mean, you can do really simple tricks. Like you can hold your breath.
Yes.
Your natural reflex.
Your body can give you spasms and you can't control them. Your body
No.
can what?
No, you can't.
Right. So the body
So
is
if the consciousness can control pain, why can't you can just go, oh, spasms? I'm just not taking any notice of them. Make them go away. Make them stop.
I don't know. I can't tell you that. I mean, it's not like it's
I mean,
cut and dry,
it's a bit
Steve.
of
It's not like it's
a
black
bit
and
of
white.
it's a bit of a weakness. You see, but this is the problem. The problem is it's full of contradictions.
Yes.
You
It's not black and white.
You argue that it's evidence of consciousness that we can not feel pain or hold our breath, and at the same time we can't control a simple jumpy leg at night or a spasm or cramp.
Right. God, those
Well,
are
you
horrible.
think that would be a relatively easy thing to do, given whatever, all the other things, I didn't feel the gun. I chose not to, my consciousness chose not to feel the gunshots, but I can't stop this cramp in my foot.
Exactly. So there's something that, because I think like the gunshots, you have your consciousness is dealing with something that's greater than a gunshot. It's dealing with survival. Taliban's coming. I've got to fight. Fight. It's so it blocks out whatever's there. But you're laying in bed or you're
I
swimming.
would think it was,
You're not thinking about anything of survival. You're just thinking of all of a sudden that hurts, and your consciousness is focused on that pain versus something else that can block that pain.
well, I mean, it's quite well known that once you focus on pain, or when you've got no other stimulus, pain does become magnified. That's why, for example, toothache is always worse at night.
Oh yeah.
Because if you've got nothing to distract you, all you can do is focus on the pain.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's explained why man flu always gets worse at night. That's just bizarre. But the point I'm making is there are things that would be very useful. The ability not to fall over rolling on the floor in agony with a simple leg cramp versus something much rarer. You've just taken 2 AK-47 rounds.
That I can understand, because that's the fight or flight thing, and that's your attention is drawn to something else, in other words, survival versus personal pain in your body. I mean, you look at UFC fighters. They go in and they beat the shit out of them, and you see them barely no wincing at all, hardly on any of them. They'll take blow after blow, and they just keep going.
They're not actually hitting each other, are they?
Oh, go away!
The
blood is all fake.
It's choreographed dancing.
His eye blown up. No, we're not talking about
choreographed dancing.
Yeah, we're not talking about wrestling.
You throw me against the ropes, and then I'll jump on top of you.
There was a UFC fighter that went to China to fight the top karate, what the hell he was in there, and he beat the shit out of him, and he had to flee because the crowds were going nuts. They couldn't believe that happened.
Well, that's just unkind.
Anyway, yes, very unkind. Anyway, so I mean, the problem with that whole thing is it's not black and white, and we don't know.
No,
we can study the effects like gravity. We know, or the wind. The wind is the one that you bring up a lot. You can feel the wind.
No, gravity is one I bring up a lot.
And wind too. You bring the wind up as well.
Well, we know what wind is. We can measure it. We can define it. What we can't do is
fair enough.
If you have a chat to a physicist and say, "What's gravity?" And if he answers honestly, the answer is, "Or magnetism." You go, well, "I don't know," but I know what it does. I know exactly what it does. I just don't know what it is.
So isn't that kind of like what consciousness is and the whole mediumship thing is?
Maybe. And that's something else I've said before. Maybe consciousness is just a natural ability that we can't, because like gravity acts on a planet or a spacecraft or a feather. And so, we can go, oh yeah, look what gravity does. We can measure it precisely. But because this other force, we don't know what it, we haven't got a name. We'll call it Psi, which is short for Simon. Because it acts on the human brain and the human psyche, and because we're all different, subtly and slightly different, then maybe it makes measuring the effects of this force very difficult and unpredictable. Whereas gravity, because it's acting on fixed, inanimate, bloody great planets and little tiny leaves, but they're not variable. They are, a leaf is a leaf, a planet is a planet.
Yeah, but we do have variations in gravity.
Yeah, but only in defined small areas like weight, mass, etc., size.
Okay.
Whereas, if you play a piece of music to one person, they might go, "Oh, it's the best piece of music I've ever heard." You play it to another person, you go, "That's awful. What a racket. Turn it off." Because we will do things differently than other people because we have that weird thing that it might be consciousness.
Right. And so that's the thing. Consciousness.
So if we are dealing with a force, a force of nature called psi, but we can't measure its effects reliably, then we can't really properly understand it. Whereas we have a force, gravity, we know basically nothing much about it, but we know what it does, and it does it in a predictable, precise way. And we can use it to put spacecraft on the moon and doohickeys in spacecraft on moons. We can't do that because of what this other force, psi, affects.
Agreed. So it's something that we don't know enough about to really.
Yeah. That's the problem.
We're getting down.
And the evidence, because it's affecting different things in different ways and is interpreted in different ways, we get contradictory interpretations of it. For your priest, heaven is a bowl of cannoli. For you, it's a game of hockey. For somebody else, it's... So there is that variability that makes contradictions happen, which makes it appear to be a highly unpredictable thing. and makes it incredibly, well, impossible to understand.
And trying to understand the relationship between consciousness and our bodies is even difficult. It's like, oh, it's the end of the show. But we even talked about sleep when you're asleep at times. You can sleep through a lot of noise, but in some cases, not everyone's different, of course, as you mentioned earlier, is that if you hear an unusual sound, it picks you right up, even though you're asleep, but you don't know where your consciousness is. Anyways, we got to go. So, um, it's intriguing. I love talking about it, and I love trying to understand it.
I'm
And
glad we didn't have to do it before breakfast, before lunch. That would be awful.
but I mean, the thing is, I mean, it's not so much theories; it's just thoughts, people's thoughts on the idea, because
There are
we
no
have,
theories. It's all opinion.
yeah. And
And
I
so
I
every
appreciate
opinion is
you
supposed,
going with me on this journey because it's
yeah, every
it's a
opinion is
difficult journey.
valid.
Hmm.
Some of them are just crazy,
Yeah, exactly. But
but
anyway,
valid.
we do have to go. You've been listening to Ghost Chronicles International right here on TogiNet Radio with Steve Parsons and Ron Kolick. And we're brought to you by Circles of Wisdom, 386 Merrimack Street, Methuen, Massachusetts, the Glant Messier Family Law Group, 55 High Street, North Andover, Massachusetts. My good friend, Positively Brilliant Candles, Reiki Infused Candles on Estee by Leslie Martin. And of course, our very, very, very good friends on Ghost Chronicles Radio on Patreon. Become a member, and you get access to some exclusive stuff there, a lot of videos and stuff, and the new Ghost Chronicle Bites, which we should be having a couple more coming up very shortly. So, Steve, if you have any questions, by the way, email me at neghostproject.com.
Address
No,
all
wait,
hate mail to Ron.
neghostproject at comcast.net. So that's what it is. So thank you, everyone. Good night and stay safe.
Good night.